Rights to freedom is dead. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and my sisters. Welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I'm your host, Afro Elite. We have a special guest with us today. We are discussing the very crucial and very important, really there's no subject more important, our children and the education that our Black children are suffering from. So I have a doctor here and we're going to go back and forth. We're going to discuss the importance, the intricacies of this subject. So without any further ado, let me bring on Dr. Musa Abdullah.
Peace and love, everybody. How's everybody doing? Thank you for having me out, having me come onto the platform. I appreciate you. So
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, not a doubt, no doubt. My name is Dr. Musa Abdullah. Been in education for 23 years, going on 24 years now. Time has flown by. I'm a doctor of education. Just recently defended my dissertation, which was entitled "Providing Equity: The Importance of Separate Educational Spaces and Foundational Black American Male Teachers for Foundational Black American Males, grades 6 through 12. Before that, I obtained my educational specialist degree. My doctorate is from St. Peter's University. If you'd like to look up my dissertation, you can look it up on ProQuest. I obtained my educational specialist degree from Seton Hall University, my master's of social work for Western Michigan University, and my English, Black Americana Studies and Religion degree from Western Michigan University. So I've been deeply entrenched in education as a learner for a very long time, since 1990. Like I said, I've been in education for 23 years, going on 24. And the demographics I've always served were Black children primarily. I mean, typically, on average, maybe 1%, maybe 2% of my population that I've served has been others, maybe most likely Latinos. And all of my history, I've only had one European descendant student, and they were twins. Other than that, it's always been us. And then I did notice over the last, maybe say 10 to 15 years, a large influx of Black immigrant students, and also always saw a large influx of Black immigrant teachers in the sciences and mathematics. So in 2010, I started to 2007, I delved heavily into gender-based education. So I've served primarily Black boys. That was my target group. So I was a part of a program called Renaissance, which is alternative education. If you know anything about alternative ed in most urban cities, those are the children that they call throwaways, the ones that the system no longer wants to deal with. But we had carte blanche to get them on track academically and socially. Working with all boys, I went into the school system. I became a founding member of a school system in New York and New Jersey called Eagle Academy. And the school's mission was to uplift Black and, as they say, brown boys. But the upliftment was needed amongst the Black boys, which our population at the time was 98% Black boys. So I worked diligently with them. And that is what spearheaded me into my doctoral research and wanted me to do more and more for our children.
Okay. Well, before we get started, I want to thank you for all of your work.
No
it's very important, very crucial. Let me ask, so the audience knows, what locations did you teach? What, like, cities, towns?
I've taught in Paterson, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, East Orange, New Jersey, and New York City.
Okay. So there's a lot that can be discussed as far as education goes. It's a lot that can be discussed. Now, we understand as foundational Black Americans that the educational system has a target on us. We're deliberately undereducated. We're deliberately set up in the system where we are provided the poorest education in comparison to other racial and ethnic demographics. So I want to salute you, and I appreciate the fact that you're not just an educator, but you made sure to specify foundational Black American children in your education. And that leads me to a series of questions, because there's a lot of parents, my audience has children, and there's a lot of people who are wondering, as far as from an educator, someone who's experienced in this field, some of the things that they should avoid, some of the problems that are going on. And then there are people who have, grandchildren or not children, who want to know just so they can spread the word and spread awareness of certain issues. So let me ask you this question. I know you said you deal with what they call like the special need, not special needs, but kind of like what you would say the throwaways in society and things. Now, as far as that's concerned, do you need some type of special license or some type of special certification or teaching or anything to deal with those children?
Now, this is the most interesting thing, and I actually had a conversation about this yesterday with my one of my good friends and fraternity brothers. We were talking about it, and I said, the thing that blows me away is that certain things that are allowed in education would never be allowed in any other field. You take the most disadvantaged populations. Now, when we're talking about, we know that foundational Black American men are we are the actual mules of this society. They throw all the garbage gets dumped on us, right? So when you start talking about what needs to be done academically, we know that there are a lot of social gaps that create these academic deficiencies. Not connecting culturally, not connecting ethnically, not understanding the deficiencies because of what may not have been taught in the home. So what ends up happening is these children get labeled, and the category that you're looking for was alternative education. Now let's be clear. Alternative education actually could be considered gifted and talented. That's actually considered alternative education because you're teaching a specific demographic for a specific reason, right? So when you talk about alternative education, typically though, you're talking about the children that are most disenfranchised, the ones that teachers don't want to deal with. They have high numbers of truancy, suspensions, physical altercations, verbal altercations. So these children are put in situations, in circumstances academically where they're just saying, hey, just try to get them out of school. Well, we decided, no, we're going to utilize the fact that you don't care against you, because we knew you didn't care what we did with these young people. So what we did was we involved them in all types of activities. We got them involved with entrepreneurship ventures. We introduced them to camping, hiking, and entrepreneurial business classes, everything that we could get our hands on. We said we're going to throw it all up against the wall, because we know that them learning reading, writing, and arithmetic, for them, some of them, it wasn't going to be enough. And we recognize that success is relative. And what you found is that the teachers that they gave us oftentimes were very, very new teachers who had no clue about education, or the ones they were trying to weed out of the district. They would literally give us the ones who had the worst rap sheets as far as academic success. They would give them to us and say, hey, this is your new math teacher, or this is your new science teacher. So we found ourselves doing a lot of supplemental education, coming in during class time, helping to teach classes, and making sure that we had tutors coming in from other agencies, taking them outside. And there were camps that did academic and social enrichment. So to answer your question, you just have to have your traditional academic credentials as far as your teaching certifications, your social work certifications, maybe your supervisory cert. But you would think they would give us more resources for this delicate population, but they never did.
That's unfortunate. Now that leads me to my next question. What would you say? Now we understand that all of this is disproportionately towards foundational Black American males. What are the things that put them in that category? Is it a history of not showing up to class? Is it failed grades? Is it physical interactions with other students? Is it lack of attention? What would be the qualifications that people would look at to determine that they need to be over on the other side?
Well, brother, I would say it could be all of the above. I've seen children put in alternative ed because they were truant. They weren't going to school. And this is prior to the incident at Rutgers College, that which kind of jump started the whole harassment, intimidation, and bullying decrees that were placed across the nation, HIB as we call it. Before that, you had kids that were like getting beat up daily, so they wouldn't go to school, right? And so since they didn't go to school, they got truancy. They got, oh, you've missed 30 days of the school year. We're going to put you in alternative education, and you have to earn your way out. And these kids weren't bad kids. These kids weren't even challenging kids. They had an unfortunate circumstance. But on the flip side, we had your drug dealers, we had your car thieves, and we had those guys, gangbangers. But what we recognized early in was like, these same kids, the reason why they're engaging is, one, it's always around them. That's all they see. And two, they don't have any outlets, any opportunities to do anything differently. And we found that when we were able to teach them how to make money legally, like, buy wholesale, sell retail, hustle, we showed them how to go out there and get a job when they got their working papers, because in New Jersey, you can get working papers at age of 13, 14. When they said, oh, I can get a job. Yeah, you can get a job, man. We can help you get a job. When they saw that they had opportunity, those things began to decrease, and they saw they had a lot of foundational Black American men in their ears saying, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do it differently. And we had to get out a lot of them. Sometimes it wasn't, as I can say, by the book, the way we got at them, but the parents understood that we were trying to save them. And I always tell them, I said, saving you is saving me, because ultimately, when you do something, if I'm walking down the street an hour later, they don't care about my age. They say, that's a Black man, and he looks like the ones who are running away from us. I want to create opportunities so that you don't find that is the only strategy to get yourself out of your circumstance.
Well, thank you for that. So let's discuss, what would you say were the opportunities that really changed their path as far as their school? What were the opportunities? Because we understand that truancy and them being put into not special education. You called it what?
Alternative education.
Alternative education. We understand that that's really a pipeline to prison.
Yes,
that's
sir.
a pipeline to the prison system because of lack of resources, opportunities, things like that. And you were able to orchestrate things and provide them opportunities and different avenues that they could take to lead them away in a different direction.
Right.
What would you say were some of, and I know it was probably a lot depending on the circumstances, the age, and all that.
Right.
What would you say were the main alternative resources and options that you were able to provide that steered them to a better path away from the prison pipeline?
You know what's so interesting about that, brother? That question, while you were asking, I was thinking, man, one of the things that was able to transition a lot of our young folks, boys and girls, to a different frame of thinking is taking college off the table as the only pathway to success.
Okay.
That right there was a game changer, because you have to understand, nowadays in schools, that is the only thing that is promoted. That's it. And literally, you have people saying that if you don't go to college, you're going to be a failure. And you have these children who literally have no one in their lives who's ever went to college. So they have no one to bounce these ideas off of. So to them, it's far-fetched. Even though the city I work in has four major universities right in the city. 4 major universities, but to them, it's just buildings. They don't connect. And we started saying, whoa. Success, first of all, success is relative. That's number one. Number two, there are other pathways to success. So I remember being told in 1994 by a European Jew, he was talking to me about how they trained their children. They identified their strengths early, and then they played to their strengths. So we have children that I mean, I got so many stories, brothers. I had a young man, and it bothers me to this day. He was sentenced to 20 years at the age of 17. But this young man worked with his father every summer doing tiling and roofing. And this young boy at the age of 12 could walk a room foot to foot and tell you the square footage. I mean, but
Wow.
he didn't, and he would make great money over the summer. But to him, it wasn't fast enough. So that was one that we lost. But we also had I created a barbershop program where I reached out to some of the higher ups in our district, and I got the funding to purchase equipment, brand new clipper sets and housing units and a brand new chair. And I got a brother who owned a barbershop. Because he really wanted to be involved with the youth, he taught them how to cut hair 2 days a week, 2 hours a day, free of charge. We also did a internship program with Turner Construction out of New York, where they got to meet young men that were like 27, 28 years old, making $120,000 a year, no degree, just learning the skills of construction. We patched them into people in skills trades such as plumbing, HVAC, anything that we knew was lucrative, could utilize their minds and their bodies, and could turn around and not cause them too much debt or cause them too much strife in the long term.
I respect that. There's a lot of, and I'm not going to talk too long before I ask you the next question. It's a lot of young black men, young foundational black American men who are very creative, very talented, have a lot of drive, have a lot of passion, and have a sense of entrepreneurship. That's one thing in our culture, I think, that is very downplayed. Our culture has a very strong sense, especially in the young males, of entrepreneurship. And in the previous generations, we've been downplaying and belittling the significance of that and saying, well, entrepreneurship is just, quote unquote, you're unemployed, you don't have a job, you don't have a real job, is what they would say. Oh, that's not a real job, you don't have a real job. And there was a negative stigma put exclusively onto our community that entrepreneurship is you kind of being lazy and you not being able to commit to an actual job. And the alternative was you have to go to college, like you were saying, you have to get some degree, then you can get a job with that degree, and you'll be able to be successful in a career based off the job you got, based off of the degree. Right. That's what we were taught socially. And all of this is done by the system of white supremacy to steer us away from what we need to be focusing on and where we need to be going. So I'm glad that you were able to really connect with them, because that's a very cultural thing that I think that we really do need to tap back into. Agreed. So let me ask you this now. What would you say are the ages between or the main ages of the black males that were sent to alternative education? I assume just naturally it would be around the high school age, but it could be younger than that. I'm not for sure. So what would you say?
I would say definitely interesting. My program that I worked with was called Renaissance, and the Renaissance program actually began 6th grade. So you're talking 11 years old, but there was actually a push to push it down to 4th grade. And it was like, this is amazing. I personally, this is interesting because I don't understand. I understand that some of our young brothers, foundational black American men, we got a lot of energy. We got a lot of creativity. I call us hyper intelligent, right? And they just want to show what they can do, and they want to just showcase it. And if you're used to the 5 rows across, 5 rows back, shut up, listen to me, lecture, you regurgitate what I'm talking, that's not working for you. So you got these young boys that are their spirits are being broken by at least by 11, but now they're trying to break them by 6 and 7, So we were getting young men at 11 years of age, 10 going on 11 sometimes, depending on their birthdays. And we literally just had to build them back up, but it did range all the way to high school. There was a component for high school called Twilight, which the high school students, they went to school from 1 o'clock p.m. until 7. That was their school day. They didn't go during the regular traditional school hours. And they had one of the highest graduation rates in the city because they spoke to them culturally, ethnically, and socially.
That's very wow. 10, 11 years old. That's something else. Well, I want to say thank you for that, because that's a very important thing that I don't think a lot of parents understand, like a lot of the truancy and things like that, because even just based off of what you see on the news and the media, you think that it's a bunch of 17-year-olds who kind of just want to get out of school. Yeah. They're not feeling it anymore. But the damage oftentimes goes to younger than that, much younger than that. And not only that, it also is the fact that it's not out of laziness. It's out of a lot of other circumstances that factor into each other, and they compile, and then they wound up leading the kid to making the decision that they're making, whether that's skipping school, whether that's not being able to really focus on school, because there's many studies that say a child who is troubled in the home has issues performing well in school. So if a child is, the lights is kind of on and off, you kind of eating breakfast some days, you're kind of not eating breakfast other days, your parents are struggling, fighting each other, you got a lot of at-home issues that play into the amount of focus and performance level that the child would have in school.
Let me interject quickly. I definitely, that's what you said is definitely 100% spot on. Also, you got to consider when you brought up the issues of the lights not being on and food scarcity, oftentimes schools provide the resources consistently that are not provided in the home. Therefore, a fact, they know 2 times out of the day, 5 days a week, they're getting breakfast and they're getting lunch. That's a definite. Sometimes children come to school for that. Also, the consistency of seeing certain people. It's commonly known in the educational field that you need to show up because you don't know who's looking to see you in that building that day. I've had students tell me, I remember I caught COVID and I was out for about a week, and there were students that were texting me saying, when you coming back so I can come back to school? I'm like, what are you talking about? Take your ass back to school. What do you mean? They're like, well, I don't want to be there if you're not there. And that happens quite frequently. It's not just me. I would love to toot my own horn and say it's me, but sometimes children need to see that level of consistency. So often it works both ways. Sometimes a child won't come to school because of what's going on at home, but a lot of times children do come to school because of what's going on.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow. Well, this is a pretty good conversation. This is very informative.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to bring up, and this is all in the guise of education. As far as the opportunities goes, as far as entrepreneurship and things like that, and the resources, we understand that a lot of the resources that used to teach and give to a degree some level of skill has been taken away. For instance, schools used to, it's a little bit before my time, but schools used to have workshops and things like that where they used to teach you about working kind of carpentry or whatever, or maybe plumbing, even cooking classes or things like that. Something that you can step your foot in to get a skill to a degree, because not too long ago, not too long ago, maybe a little over a generation ago, you didn't need a college degree in order to get a sustainable job doing something.
That's
And
right.
now we don't have that anymore. Now you don't see any type of programs, almost like not workshops, almost like trades. You don't see
Yeah.
trades being taught in schools anymore.
Yeah.
Now
Those
the
are
schools
taken
are
out.
still, yeah.
Those are taken out. You're talking about vocational training.
Mhm,
And they've been replaced. That's the interesting thing about it. They've been
mhm,
replaced to further perpetuate the ideology that you have to have a college degree to be successful. It used to be
mhm,
a point in time where vocational trainings, you could literally graduate from high school and go into a trade.
mm,
You know, they had tracks. They don't have those anymore. What they have supplemented them with is now you can graduate high school with a 2-year associate's degree.
mhm,
And typically it's liberal arts. It's nothing that's sustainable. You can't take it and do anything with it. And you know, to be very honest with you, for the most part, that's most college degrees, unless you're going into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you're not going into STEM, typically your degree is not going to be worth the money you put into it.
that's
So
true.
now they're saying, well, we're going to give you a 2-year degree upon graduation, and this is the hook. Let me teach you. Let me tell you the game.
Mhm,
So we get you into the school, get you to high school. We give you college courses. They're free, which is always great. You take them, you get a high school diploma and an associate's degree coming out of high school, which is great. But you really can't do anything. So the next hook is, you know, because you already have a 2-year degree, now when you go to your 4-year college, you only got a couple of years left. You only got a couple of years left. And what New Jersey has done is if you do obtain a 2-year degree from a community college in New Jersey, you can go to any state school for free. That's great. But that's all contingent upon the idea that these kids have some type of guidance or mentorship, and they don't. That's the
mhm,
problem. You know, I've mentored so many young men, even in my organization. I was the head of educational services, which is mentorship. But me and my group of brothers, what, 10 to 15 of us, that's not even good for one school, you know. So we're talking
mhm,
hundreds of thousands of black young men and women who are being told you got to go to college, but some of them, the majority of them have never seen anyone close to them, close tied, that has done it, who's
mhm.
succeeded, who's been successful, and who has come back, which is the most important part, and said, I obtained this, I worked hard, this is how I got it, these are the pitfalls, follow my plan, don't do what I did wrong, do what I did right, and become successful. That doesn't happen. But if you were to able to bring vocational, bring trades into school, these are people that are literally one generation above them. One generation. So they're looking at people, they're what, 14, 15. These people are 25, 26, who are working. I'm talking doing well for themselves, sustaining themselves and their families, and enjoying their craft. And guess what? The most important things, they don't have $100,000 worth of debt when they're done learning about their craft.
That is important.
Yeah.
That's something that they don't tell the kids about. That's something that, unfortunately, we see a lot of our youth be deceived by that. We see a lot of people say, well, you know what? It's all an investment.
Hmm.
And if you get this degree, you study hard, you're very smart, you're very talented, you're gonna get a good job. That job is gonna pay you enough for you to pay this degree off or pay this debt off in a couple of years. But people don't understand oftentimes, and it's almost the case where it's starting to be, well, actually, at this point it is, it's a majority of the time, with the exception of, like you said, if they do go to a STEM, if they do get a degree in some type of STEM, if it's anything almost except that, you know, they're not able to pay off the loan with the interest and everything, and then we have to factor in the fact that as foundational Black Americans will be disproportionately affected with higher rates of interest. And then you're going to have to deal with the fact that there's no, as a foundational Black American, there, especially for us, there's no guarantee of employment, at least immediate employment. There's many people who go to college and then they don't get jobs in the degree that they actually went to school for.
Yes, sir. That's definite. That's definite. I was actually one of those people. I didn't have guidance. You know, my parents were the baby boomers, you know, and my mother was a police officer. My father passed away. He was in the Army. But the man that was closely connected to me, who would serve such as a father figure, he was a police officer. He didn't go to college, you know, but the baby boomers told Generation X, go to college and everything will be okay, you know? And so I went away to college, you know, and I had no direction. I didn't even realize what I wanted to do until after I graduated. And then I had to go back to school, you know, but I didn't have the mentorship because I didn't have a lot of college graduates in my family. I'm one of the first. I'm the first doctor in my family. But that was all by design. I think that was divine intervention by me being involved with our children. It said, you know, I need to learn all that I need to learn so that they can benefit. And I just let everyone know that if you have a child, or if you know any children, point them in the paths of all things that can benefit them. Just don't pigeonhole them to college. Don't pigeonhole them just to sports. You know, hell, for that matter, don't just pigeonhole them to things like trade, because a child may be good at a particular area of trade, but wants something in STEM. Let them know that the world can be done, but you got to help pinpoint their strengths, and you need to push them towards that, because our children are amazing. I mean, you'll be amazed at just some of the things our children soak up like sponges and learn and regurgitate and fully conceptualize. I'm talking 7, 8-year-old kids blow my mind regularly with their conversations, and these are our children. So the fallacy of culture and just genetic, and they're genetically inferior, cut it out, because if we were as genetically inferior in any level, specifically academically, they wouldn't go through the lengths they go through to handicap us.
Yeah, that's true. So all the low IQ stuff that they say is, and I've done a broadcast on this, is factually 100% scientifically incorrect. Very, very incorrect. Now, a lot of parents who have children, especially the younger children, they're trying to lead them to the correct path. What would you say in your profession? You've been doing this for a very long time. What would you give advice if you were asked, how do parents find the strengths of their children? What are some ways that they can test to find, or how would they find where their children's strengths are so they can help boost them in that direction, help give them options and opportunities in that direction that complements their strengths?
Well, first of all, you got to allow your children to just be themselves. Let them be comfortable in being who they are, and you observe them. And you also have to invest in your children by exposing them to new experiences, be it locations, foods, whatever it is. You know, you need to let them see new things. Introduce them to videos. Now, nowadays, back in the day, I would say introduce them to books. I'll still say that because I love books. As you can see, I got books on tops of books. I read all my show, right? But nowadays, children don't read books, and they try to get their information in snippets. Send them clips of things that may be exciting to them, and then say, hey, you want to go check that out. Offer them the opportunity. And most of the time, these things are free. You know, when you go to expos, conventions, they have like free forums, free workshops. Whatever there is something new. if you see your child works well with their hands, introduce them to everything: carpentry, electrician, whatever, pottery, sculpting, whatever. You need to be invested in finding your children's strengths. So that means observation. Secondly, when you identify them, you got to put in the legwork and the footwork, finding a school that will help foster it. Now, I know when you're talking about public education, I'm a proponent of us creating our own schools that focuses primarily, secondarily, and tertiarily on foundational Black American greatness. That's what I believe in. It's very hard to find that, but what you will find oftentimes are schools that do focus on Blackness. You find a lot of that, and you gotta sometimes when you try to get to a destination, you just can't run the whole time. So you gotta walk. And right now we're walking. Put them in a space that promotes everything, and they're hard to find. I must admit, my youngest son, who's 11, he's in a school that promotes everything, and I love it. If my son went there tomorrow and said, I want to be a pipe fitter, those teachers would applaud him and say, okay, let's go. Let's find out something that will help you with that. So you got to be attentive, find out what they want, and then find institutions. And if they may not be the school, find supplemental institutions, clubs, meet and greets, activities in your city that support the things they want to do. My daughter, she's my fourth child. She is the one that has literally done everything. We put her in every single thing. Same thing with my youngest son, put him in everything to find out what stuck. But we did not lie to them and say, you could be whatever you want to be. That's not the best course of action, to tell your child you can be whatever you want to be, because what ends up happening is that they begin to choose things that they just think are fun, but they may not necessarily have a strength in it, you know? And we need to be mindful of where our children are weak and where they're strong, play to their strengths, remind them of their weaknesses, and say their weaknesses can be strengthened. But it is always the best course of action to lead your child to the path of least resistance, where they're happy and where they have strength, and find something that's lucrative in that area, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it answers my question very well. And I think a lot of parents who are watching this, who will watch this, are going to be very happy to hear that that's an avenue for you. And it's very simple to implement. You know, you don't have to put this in front of them, and then if that don't work, put this in front. It doesn't take a lot of trial and error. All it really takes, as what you just explained, is you being attentive, is you paying attention, letting the kid almost discover themselves, and all you have to do is be aware. What direction is the kid leaning to? Now, if the kid is very interested, I'm sure, and I'm just giving an example, if the kid is very interested in planes and sky and stuff like that, and they like the study of airplanes and helicopters and that science, you can lean them. Okay, well, maybe you want to be a pilot or an engineer as far as planes. If the child is super interested as far as business, real estate, or anything like that, well, let's lean you more into that field. Or if the child is interested in computers or anything like that, you know, you allow the kid to do that. You don't just say, okay, well, I wonder if the kid is into computers. Let me see. Okay, well, no. I wonder if the kid is into planes. Let me see. Okay, no. I wonder if the kid is into animals. Let me see. No, just allow the child to almost figure it out for you, and you just pay attention when you see the signs. Right. So I think a lot of parents would be very happy when they hear that, because it's a much easier solution than you trying to throw everything at the child and see what sticks.
Right. Totally agree.
I want to ask you this, because this is a very important issue and it's becoming a growing problem. We have an influx, especially in recent years, in the last few years or so, we have an influx in illegal immigration, and that affects cities. In particular, it affects New York and it affects Chicago. Those are the main two cities that it is heavily affecting. The children are in the process, the government, the city government is in the process in enrolling these children, the immigrant children, into the public school system. And we all know once they're enrolled in the public school system, they will leapfrog the foundational Black American children as far as priority goes when it comes to the schooling system, when it comes to the teachers, when it comes to making sure that their education is cared for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you, and with your experience, can you explain how detrimental, because some people might say, well, what's the difference if you have more children in the school because you're going to have more resources by the government? So are we exaggerating when we say that this is going to be detrimental to foundational Black American children, or is it really going to be that way?
Not at all. You are spot on. And let me explain. First, let me use New York City. New York City, right now, on average, we spend $38,000 per student annually. So every student that walks into the door, bam, $38,000 that we're paying for that one child. And we have the largest school district in the nation. You know, we service over 1 million students. And that was prior to the influx of migrants. What happens when they come? Well, multitude of things. First and foremost, there's a financial burden, as of course you can only imagine, because we have a budget, annual budget, however many billions of dollars a year it is. But when you all of a sudden, you say, let's use a round number of 5 billion. You have a budget of 5 billion. That is based upon the numbers that you had last year and a slight uptick in anticipated numbers. By no means is that number composed of the 10 to 15,000 students that are now coming in. So you take, let's say 10,000 children and multiply that by $38,000. That's how much we're in a deficit for our educational system. It's not only is it a strain financially just on the monetary sense, it's a strain far as physically. Most of our school buildings are historic buildings. They have a set number of classrooms. They have not a lot of renovations going on. They're historic buildings. And you're talking about optimum class size being optimum, where everyone's getting enough attention and learning. That would typically be between 11 to 15. We're functioning right now before the migrant crisis at 25 students to one teacher, 25 to 1. If you throw those immigrants into the mix, we're now looking at 35, 32 to 1. And a lot of them are they're not English speakers. There's we call ESL students, English as a second language. We're talking about young people who do not speak any English. So what are we doing now? We're recruiting bilingual teachers. They're getting an excess pay. They're getting paid more because they're bilingual. They get an extra $4,000 per year if you speak Spanish, and then I think it varies depending upon the language and the need. So now you're talking about paying your teachers more because they need to be paid more. You're talking about creating ESL classes, which are woefully packed, overcrowded. I'm talking about, I was working with alongside a teacher who was Haitian, and he spoke Spanish and Haitian Creole. And one day I walked in his class and I said, I assumed that another teacher was sick for the day and that he had taken over their class. It was that many students in the classroom. It was about 40 children in this one room, half of which spoke Creole, the other half spoke Spanish. None of them spoke English. They were all the first generation of students in American public schools. They were here, getting that education, pulling away from the financial resources, taking up the space of those ESL classes. And when we start talking about the effects it has on the student population, well, guess what? Those foundational Black American kids, they know when they're being treated differently.
Yeah.
I've had so many times a student has told me, man, because I was the dean of students. Dang, Dr. Abdullah, how come they never in detention? They never get in trouble. And this is the interesting thing. They were doing the exact same things as my Black American students, but because they were ESL, they were given grace. It was amazing the types of discussions and arguments I would have to have with administration, with colleagues, say, no, they were doing wrong. How come they can't? So there's a social toll that's placed on Black American students. They see it. They see the treatment. Then when you start bringing on, if I'm going to go down the rabbit hole, let's talk about the teachers that are brought in there. They're being brought into the academic environment. A lot of these teachers, they are staunch. I'm down for the Latino or Hispanic community. That's who I'm riding with. I'm going to make sure they get everything they need. I'm going to coddle them. I'm going to pat them on the back. And that's how they roll. And they bring their anti-Black sentiments to the classroom, because I've had conversations with students that were bilingual, they were bilingual, and they would tell me, oh, Mr. Abdullah, such and such says such and such. And I'm like, well, what they say? They're like, yo, and they would give me the insight. And then I would bring it to the teachers, and the teachers wouldn't go off the handle. And I'm like, well, so, and I would tell the teachers, I said, you do realize that your apathetic, lackadaisical approach to this situation tells them it's okay. I've had a Venezuelan, I would say he was Venezuelan student, call another Black student a raccoon, call him a monkey. And when I was like, oh no, you're getting up out of here. That's harassment, intimidation, bullying. I'm getting you up out of here. You're gonna do some restitution. When the parents and the grandparents came in, they tried to defend it. So you're bringing this anti-Black sentiment country to the school.
They tried to the students' parents tried to defend it.
Yes, by saying, "Oh, he was just joking." It's like calling up any other animal. He didn't mean anything by it. Are you kidding me? Of all the things he could have called him, he called him a monkey. He called him a raccoon. Of all the animals in the world, he called him a raccoon. He called him a monkey. I said, and I told the parents to their face, I said, I fault him, but I blame you. So as you can imagine, they didn't want to meet with me anymore, but they had no choice because I was a dean of students, But we're talking about social degradation, financial burdens. We're talking about classroom management styles have changed. Student experiences have changed. The resources are pulled. We just had we had a situation occur. We had a really bad rainstorm, and there is a airstrip, Floyd Bennett Field. It's an airstrip and it's a field. They have a lot of activities, but they made it into a migrant shelter. But because there was supposed to be this torrential rain, they literally shut down the school, told all the kids they had to go home. They couldn't come to school that day. They had to be virtual so that all the migrants could go inside the school because of the rain. You can only imagine the parents. They were outraged. They say, so I have to now either take off work or find childcare because my child can't go to school because you want to house migrants in their school. So it's taxing every way but loose. And I try to tell people, stop telling me that it's not that bad unless you live in a sanctuary city. If you don't live in a sanctuary city, you can't speak on it. Yeah. But I know that my children, our children, they're mine. I call them my children. My children are struggling and suffering, and they're seeing children that have no skin in the game being given resources that they were never offered. Training, separate classrooms, special teachers, different lunch periods. I mean, you'll be amazed. There's been a uptick in the focus on Hispanic studies and history and things that we never did before. Now all of a sudden it's become a major deal, when if it wasn't for people like myself, Black American history, that would just be another spot on the calendar. It would just come and go. But now we're having programs, speakers come for Hispanic Heritage Month. And that was something we didn't, my school that I worked at for, geez, what, 10 years? We never celebrated it until the year 2018. We just never did. We never celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month because we only had like 2 or 3 Latinos in our school. There was no need. And because of it, I actually bumped heads with the administration over that. So it has a toll, brother, on our students, on staff, resources, building, physical plant, everything. Anyone who tells you differently is lying.
Wow. This lets people know that this is very important. And I also want to say too that it's very interesting that all of these resources come up out of nowhere when non-Black students start to populate the school district. When non-Black students start to attend the schools, then all of a sudden these schools who were always claiming poverty, were always claiming that they're low on money, that they're low on funds, that they're low on resources, they're low on teachers, they're low on different solutions, they're able to pull money just seemingly out of nowhere, the money that they claim that they did not have for foundational Black American students, and to provide them adequate education. They're able to find this money, as you said, so they can hire more teachers or pay teachers more money for these students, because they would need different teachers, different classrooms, and even special programs and things like that, as far as Hispanic heritage and bringing speakers, which are not free, doing all of these things. So the resources that you see that the school district has always had, that they claim that they don't, they utilize them when it comes to teaching non-Black students, non-FBA students in particular.
Exactly. I'll even go one step further, brother. These when you start putting Latinos and Hispanics in charge of the finances, of the budgets, brother, and this is no exaggeration, this is not hyperbolic. They literally build schools for their children. I mean, I'm going to say it again. Literally build brand new schools on tax dollars in predominantly Black cities for Hispanic and Latino students, brother. You can't make this up. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I actually did a broadcast on it about the anti-Black racism in Newark's public schools. And it was a school that was built brand new, where the students and the teachers were calling the Black students all types of N-words. And they brought it to the school board, and the superintendent, who is a white Hispanic, just overlooked everything, and still to this day continues to overlook it, even though a large influx of their staff has left and the Black students have left. So now it's a Latino Hispanic Mecca now.
Wow. And you can only imagine how worse this problem is going to get.
Oh, yeah.
And the next 10 years, 5 years, this problem is going to be, we're going to look at this and say, this is light work in comparison to how significant the issue is going to be in the upcoming years. It's a very, very important thing that we are working with, a very dangerous thing that we are working with. Let me ask you, with your knowledge and expertise on this, what would you say Black parents need to do as far as demanding that they're like, because we're going to get into alternative solutions in a second, but there are some foundational Black American parents who at the moment in time don't have the option to pull their children out of the public schools.
Right.
Let's say, I'm giving you a hypothetical situation. Let's say a parent has a child within the age of 13, 14 years old. They're attending public schools, and this is a sanctuary city where a whole bunch of immigrants are coming over and they're tethering the resources. What should a foundational Black American parent do to raise awareness of that and to see if they can bring about change?
Well, first of all, start at the bottom. You need to start with your principal, your teachers and your principals. You need to say, okay, listen, I see, what's going on. They're getting what they got, but what is my student going to get? You got to have a plan of action. You need to you have to have your demands. What do you actually want for your child? Because a lot of times, sad to say, in the foundational Black American community, because we're always so cash strapped, we're just trying to work. We want our kids to go to school, do well, and just don't have the teachers call me, but we don't spend the time to say our children need such and such resource. So if there's something that your child needs, you should demand from your teacher and your principal, if my child needs it, I don't want to hear you don't have the money for it. I don't want to hear it. If you hear that, you need to be making calls, emails, and visits to your school board meetings. They always give you opportunities to speak. You need to be talking to your council people, and you need to be talking to your local politicians, because ultimately that is a local issue. It's not a federal issue. It's a local issue. To get federal dollars, but you need to be having those conversations. Also, you need to be abreast of what's going on in the district, because they let you know. They have the documents. They give them out at the school board meetings. They tell you, this is what we're spending the money on. This is why we're spending the money on, and this is what we're spending the money on next year. So you can't say you didn't know. And they rely on our ignorance of the rules. They rely on our ignorance of policy to work against us. And if you find that your school is being, you got to get out of your comfort zones. If your child has been in the school, I don't care how many years, but they're being mistreated, you got to get them out. But that requires research, because most districts are schools of choice. They don't have neighborhood schoolings anymore. You need to find a school. Sometimes it may be cross town. It may be on the edge of town, and you might have to fork over for transportation. But I think it's worth it for your child to receive all the resources that they need. So those are the primary things you need to do. Be abreast of policy, attend school board meetings, have conversation with your principal as well as your teacher, your student's primary teacher. Keep yourself abreast of everything that's going on, and keep your head up, keep your ear against the ground to find out exactly what policies are coming down the pipe, because they always have to have a budget, and you need to know what's going to be in that budget.
Okay. So this is some advice for the FBA teachers out there. This is what you can do if you don't have the option to completely pull your child out of school or homeschool at the moment. This is what you can do. And this also highlights the importance of you being involved in the child's life. Too many times we see a parent, hey, I'm just trying to focus on work, and they use school as a babysitter to a degree. They use school to somewhat raise the child between the hours of their working. So you need to be involved in what the school is spending its money on, what the school is planning to do, their agenda, their curriculum, and the teachers involved. If the teachers are having difficulty with your child, if anything like that, or if your child is being neglected, even if they're not having difficulty, if the child is being neglected, all of these things need to be paid attention to, and they need to be rectified immediately. Let me ask you, what would you say as a father of young children? What would you say is the best solution? Now, we just discussed the solution if you couldn't pull your child out, but as a father, what would you say as foundational Black Americans we need to do as the best solution to educate the children, to bring about the best avenue and the best path for the child's success from the childhood to adulthood?
Well, I think
I know it's a loaded question, but I think it's important.
I literally focus on this on every broadcast. I say the same thing: create, fund, and maintain our own institutions. I'm talking about literally unapologetically foundational Black American. I'm talking about creating schools that we do not act, we don't know. And people I had somebody actually get upset when I said no. I said a school that I would create does not celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. For what? It has nothing to do with us. It celebrates foundational Black American history, innovation, everything that we've contributed to not only this country, but to the world. We need to create those types of schools. Those schools can be done through charter. They can be done through public. They can be done through homeschool pods or just homeschooling. So those are things that I've always talked about: homeschooling, homeschool pods, private institutions, and charter.
And can we specify what is the difference between homeschool and homeschool pods?
A homeschool pod is where there's a group of students and the teachers rotate. The parents rotate as the teacher, or they may have hired a teacher. Let's say you, myself, and 3 other families. We get together. Monday, they're at my home. All the kids come to my house. Tuesday, they go to another parent's home. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And either the parents are teaching or there's someone who's hired to teach. You're getting the state curriculum. You get the state curriculum, so you have to do the cores. You're talking about your mathematics, your English language arts, and your sciences. But you got to meet the benchmarks, and that's easy. But the thing is, you are allowed to, you can bring in some of the readings that they suggest, but you can also utilize the readings that you think are most beneficial. For example, I think that all high schoolers, by the time they reach 10th grade, they should have read Black Labor, White Wealth. That should, Powernomics. Those 2 books should have been read by 10th grade. The Autobiography of Malcolm X. That should be a given, an automatic given. You start talking about the ISIS paper. Those are books that should be given. When you create a homeschool pod or homeschool, those books could be a part of your curriculum. Even if you do a charter model or private model, those things could be a part of your curriculum. So when I say what we should do, we should create our own schools. But the problem is that, and I use this analogy, I said that we're looking at this polished, beautiful table, shellacked, it's beautiful. And that's the dominant society's table. Then we're looking over to our right, we see this little table, it's a little raggedy, it's a little off center a little bit. And I was like, do you realize that that table started off like this one? It may not be beautiful as that one, but it's ours. So what does that mean? We have the opportunity to craft it, create it, and shape it the way we like it. And what is that? And I'm telling you, brother, I see the Asian schools out here. When I say Asian schools, I don't want you to think that they create their own schools, brother. They have so much influence in New York. They literally have New York City public schools where the primary language is Mandarin. I want that to sink in. There are New York City public schools I pay my tax dollars for. They speak Mandarin. That's their primary language. But you have the European Jew. I commend them for having their own school systems. And they like, no, we're private. We run our schools the way we want to run them. We teach them what we want to teach them because we want them to carry on our legacy. That's what we need in our communities. We need our own institutions of learning so that we can teach them and show them the ways of our ancestors and show them how great they are and how great they currently are today and what they were in the past, so that they can feel comfortable and not be bombarded with the negative imagery and propaganda that we see on typical media. So that's what we definitely need. Homeschool pods, private institutions, or charters written up in the state that specifically speak to the needs of the foundational Black American community.
Thank you for that. I like the fact that you gave multiple different options with that, multiple different solutions, because we have to understand that sometimes solutions aren't just one thing. It's not like, okay, this is what you need to do and we're hyper focused and this is the only solution and throw everything else away. No, there are multiple different solutions, multiple different avenues. And I like that because everybody does not have the same situation. Everybody does not have the same finances. Everybody does not have the same availability. So you have to create different avenues in different situations that fit different types of situations. And with your options that fit different types of situations, there might be people who have a little less money, but a little bit more time, and then the homeschooling option, that might be their best option. There might be someone who has more money, more resources, but they don't tend to have a lot of time, and then they might say, well, maybe a private school or something like that that I can just kind of govern it when necessary. That might be the best option. So there are different options to different situations, but there is a solution regardless to all of them.
That's right.
So I want to thank you. Can you explain your platform? You have a YouTube platform where you discuss these topics. Can you explain that to the audience, please?
No problem. The name of my platform is All Things Education Official. Educational news from a foundational Black American male's perspective. I speak on education, the disparities, talk about policy, talk about the recent debacles, innovations, and I'm not just a downer channel. I like to speak upon things that are positive. One of my most recent broadcasts was about the homework house in Avondale, the Avondale area of Highland Park, Michigan. Homework house Mama Shu, she created a safe space for Black children to do their homework and study and be tutored. So I talk about everything dealing with education and our people. And I'll let you know before you even come onto the channel, it's for us. It is for foundational Black American men and women and their children. That's who it's for. It's not for anyone else. I mean, if you want to come on and check it out, please, if you're an ally to what we want to do, you support that, feel free. But just be aware that that's what I talk about. And I focus on things that we can do as a strategy to help our children, not just reporting, oh, this is terrible, this happened. Yeah, it's terrible, this has happened, but it could be prevented in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. Is there any other social media or anything that people can follow you on?
You can follow me on Instagram, All Things Education Official. You can follow me on LinkedIn as Dr. Musa Abdullah. You can follow me on All Things Education Official on Facebook and TikTok, All Things Educator.
Okay, thank you. Before we leave, is there any closing statements that you'd like to give us?
Yes, I would like to say, and this is this always gets me in hot water, and that's okay. If you are an educator, a foundational Black American educator in particular, if you are in a fraternity or a sorority and you have not brought your organization into your school to mentor the Black American boys and girls in your school, you are wasting space. What is the purpose of being in these organizations if you're not going to utilize them to uplift our children? If you're not mentoring at least one or two per year, you're wasting space. Please stop just trying to get your check and roll to the summers, roll to the weekends. We need your strength, not just your education.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. We had a very good conversation. Definitely. Shout out to you, audience. You guys, all of his information is going to be in the comment section below. So you guys will definitely be able to go down, follow it in the comments, in the description, go down, follow his page. You guys can study up. You, especially as parents, I think it's very important, very vital that you guys understand the depth of the issue and that you research every single solution. Even if you know the solution you should take, there are alternatives that you might be unaware of that you should at least know about. Even if you decide not to go that route, you should at least know about different solutions to this problem as far as foundational Black American education or miseducation. So right. Dr. Musa Abdullah, I appreciate you for coming on and sharing this knowledge with us.
I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate your platform. Appreciate all that you're doing for the foundational Black American community.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, make sure you guys follow me on my various social media platforms. That is Afro Elite on Instagram, and then The Afro Elite on Twitter. The link to that is going to be in the description below. Also, make sure, please don't forget to hit that like button. It's very helpful, very important. Hit that subscribe button. Very helpful, very important. It helps the reach and the growth of the platform. We're here to dispense information that's going to help the foundational Black American community, and you all can do that with us by hitting that subscribe button. It's very important that you do so, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when we have these very educational broadcasts, when we have these very special guests to come on. So hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. Now, with that being said, my brothers and my sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all, and you all have a good one.